Who's in, you guys? This is Mrs. Klein.
Hey, idiots, and Mr. Creighton.
We're here for your first podcast for Chapter 7, Lesson 1, Reunifying China. Okay, in this lesson, you guys are going to learn about how the belief systems changed in China after the fall of the Han Dynasty. And I think you'll probably remember the Han Dynasty from 6th grade, you guys. I know that was something you covered in your social studies class there. You're also going to learn how the Sui and the Tang dynasties reunified China. Like always, there are vocabulary terms. Okay, you're going to want to make sure that you're ready to go with the podcast quiz, vocabulary podcast quiz for the vocabulary terms. They are this time nomad, Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and reunify. And I think it's not a bad idea for those ones that end with an ISM for you to really jot down and be sure about kind of what the beliefs for each one of those religious beliefs kind of stand for, because I think you're going to want to be able to differentiate between the three of them.
Yeah, we have our big idea, and that is rulers have a great impact on their society and leave lasting impressions. And we also have some essential questions. The first one, how do belief systems influence a people's way of life?
Okay. Second, how do rulers shape present and future civilizations?
And our final one, how are lasting effects of rulers reflected in a society? Our first section we'll be going over is the fall of the Han Dynasty. You can find this on page 213. The question we want you guys to be thinking about as we read through, what happened after the Han Dynasty fell in AD 220? Political struggles and social problems weakened the Han Dynasty. It fell in AD 220. China no longer had a single ruler.
Okay, various kingdoms fought among themselves. Invaders from the north crossed into northern China. Floods, droughts, and food shortages also plagued the land.
Despite these troubles, Chinese culture survived. In the north, the invading nomads, people who moved from place to place, eventually settled down. Gradually, they adopted Chinese customs. In the south, good harvests and growing trade helped people to prosper. Even so, most Chinese people led difficult lives. The question you guys should be able to answer in your head right now, what were the effects of the fall of the Han Dynasty on China?
All right, moving on to the next section in this lesson it's called Changes in Belief Systems, and you can follow along on pages 214 through 216. Be thinking of this question as you listen to this information. What changes took place in China's belief systems? Okay, the hardships after the fall of the Han Dynasty led to major changes in China's belief system. For centuries, the Chinese practiced Confucianism, a belief based on the ideas of Confucius. He taught moral values, ideas of right and wrong. Confucius stressed using right relationships to produce social order. In addition, Confucius focused on education and acting in morally correct ways.
Confucianism affected many aspects of Chinese government. For example, his focus on education helped to produce well-trained government workers. His ideas also influenced society. He thought society should be organized around 5 basic relationships. A code of conduct governed these relationships. Some of these relationships were based on the family. Confucius wanted children to have respect for their parents, older generations, and especially their teachers.
There we go, right on. Okay, around AD 200, the Han Dynasty began to lose power. As this happened, Confucianism began to lose its influence. During this time, many Chinese turned to Buddhism, a religion that started in India. Buddhism teaches that people suffer because they are too attached to material things and selfish ideas. It also claims that people can escape suffering by living in a wise and moral way.
Over time, Buddhism spread to China and later to Japan and Korea. Buddhism helped people endure the suffering that followed the fall of the Han Dynasty.
Okay, the third religious belief, guys, now is Taoism. Taoism began in China in the 500s BC. Taoism is a belief system that seeks harmony with nature and inner feelings.
In the AD 600s, Confucianism enjoyed a rebirth, but Confucian thought began to change. Confucian thinkers blended aspects of Buddhism and Taoism into Confucianism. This new Confucianism was more concerned with human behavior. The question you guys should be able to answer right now in your head, How did China's belief systems change?
You know what's interesting, Mr. Creighton, as you were just reading that bit of information there about how Confucian thinkers blended aspects, it kind of reminds me a little bit about what happened in West Africa, where you had African kings they kind of blended Islam with their traditional beliefs. I think then people are happy.
Yeah.
Okay, or happier when you are able to kind of blend a variety of things together.
Yeah.
All right. The next section in this lesson, you guys, is the Sui and Tang dynasties, reunifying China. You'll find this information on pages 216 to 219. Okay, how did the Sui and Tang dynasties reunify and strengthen China? So after the fall of the Han dynasty, the Chinese suffered more than 350 years of conflict. Okay, that's a long time to be dealing with some conflict. Finally, the Sui dynasty, from 581 to 618, reunified China and brought order. Reunify means to bring a group together after it has been divided.
Yang Zhan founded the Sui dynasty. He was a general in the army of the Zhou. The Zhou were rulers in northern China. In 581, Yang Zhan took power by killing the heir to the Zhou throne. By 589, he had conquered the south and reunified China. He became known as Wendi.
Wendi brought back old political traditions. These traditions reminded the Chinese of their glorious past. Wendi reduced conflict by allowing people to follow their own belief systems. In addition, he began public works projects. For example, he started the building of the Grand Canal. It linked northern and southern China.
Wendi and his successor, Yang Di, raised taxes to pay for all the projects. In time, the Chinese people grew tired of high taxes. They then revolted. As a result, the Sui dynasty fell after only 37 years.
Okay, then the Tang dynasty was established in 618 by Gao Zu and his son Taizong. It ruled for nearly 300 years. During this period, China expanded its borders on all sides. Tang emperors based the running of the government on Confucian principles. As a result, the Tang government became one of the most advanced in the world.
In 690, Wu Zhao became empress. She was the only woman to occupy the throne of China. She proved herself a capable leader. Wu Zhao conquered Korea.
Okay. Another great Tang empire, Xuanzong, came to power in 712. He ruled for more than 40 years. During his reign, Chinese literature and art reached great heights. Okay, you should be able to answer this question after having listened to that section. What methods did the Sui and Tang dynasties use to reunify and strengthen China?
Don't forget, you're going to have a vocab quiz tomorrow, a podcast quiz. There are 5 terms, and remember, if they end in ISM, we have 3 of them. You probably want to pay close attention to that. So the terms are nomad, Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and reunify. All right, well, I'm too tired from that.
All right, you guys, take it easy.